on too?
I am. I am. And so actually what I need to do right now is I need to make sure I'm not on the starting sequence. everybody. Hello. How's it going? How about this tropical flavor tonight behind me? Forgot to grab the text on this book. It's a good thing I know right where that book is on my shelf over there. If only I had Cake in the room to help me get it. No, I'm just kidding. Fetch me my book, Cake. It's not very far. This office is not that big. Good evening to everybody. Hello. It's time for Quilt Nerd. Quilt Nerd is a show about quilts. We don't normally teach you how to make them. We talk about the history and culture of quilts and why they matter. Why they matter to anybody who cares about, humanity, whatever. If that's not your thing, fine. No, I'm kidding. But what I've found over the course of my life is that I didn't care about quilts, and then I wanted to make them, and then I started looking into them, and I cared more about them the more I looked at them. Because when you look at quilts really deeply, or even intentionally, if you really look, just like, if you really look at anything, really look, and that could be a person, and by looking at a person, I mean talking to them, looking into their soul, not just their appearance. But when you really look at a thing, somebody said, it's one of my favorite authors actually, Andrew Solomon, who was quoting somebody that he talked to. He said, you can't hate anyone once you know their story. And I think that's a pretty good sentiment for, the state of America these days. It's like nobody really knows each other's story. I mean, a lot of times, we just sort of skip over that story part and just go to your opinion on a thing and make our judgments. Anyway, so when we really look at quilts, we can learn about, how people are, what technology has done over the generations, what it means to build an industry that's worth $4 billion, and when you trace the evolution of the industry all the way back to the first colonists, it's crazy. It's a really intense story. So we look at that story, and some of it's really fun and some of it's really weird, but it's all connected to quilts, which gives us an angle into everything that we want to know. Quilt nerds are very curious people in all senses of the term. So tonight, so on Saturday night, I did a little something different where I did a monologue, if you will. We're not calling it Mary's Musings. You can unofficially call it Mary's Musings if you want, but I'm not going to call it that. But it's a format that has been tested and approved. The late night talk show host do a little monologue before the show begins, and we're going to try it. Once is okay. Once could be a lark. I'm going to do it again, share a little thing with you, and if people are like, get on with it, then we'll start to understand that. But you can, I don't always talk about quilts only, believe me. But on the show, I always do, because that's the show. There's this guy who, God bless he, my sister Hannah, when I was in New York City, when we were walking up and down the block, we were, it sounds weird. We were in the neighborhood and we were walking around, and she said, oh, here comes the angriest girl in the world. The angriest girl in the world lives on Hannah's block, and indeed, she was very angry. Anytime we encountered her, she was really mad. But then she asked for a light at one point, and not that I had one, but I might have had a light, and I gave her a light, and Hannah said it's been different with her ever since. Anyway, the guy who works the front desk at this office building, I think he's the most unfriendliest man in the world. He's just, but I forget why I was going to tell you that. Oh, it's going to come to me. Oh, God. Anyway, there was a reason why. Okay, we'll edit that out. Oh, it was so good. It made sense. Okay, anyway. So here's the thing I wanted to share with you. So I like doing this show, and I have said that before, but I was thinking about why I like it. And I was thinking about this last night because I was making an animation. There's going to be this intro to the show eventually, this animated intro about how to subscribe and why you should subscribe to Quilt Nerd and what your subscription dollars do and your donations and all of that stuff. And I'm making an animation because I feel like I talk enough in this show. You see me enough, let's hear from some cartoons. And so and I have a little bit to show you here in just a minute. I don't know how to animate anything, but there's a few YouTube videos out there where you can learn how to do really, really basic animation, really basic. But the truth is the more basic the animation, the more I kind of like it. I mean, I really like Pixar stuff, but I really like Mac Paint. Some of you are old enough to remember Mac Paint. Stephanie Cake, I feel like, yeah, I knew it. I was like, Stephanie, she's like, mm-hmm. If you ever used Mac Paint, then perhaps you know the joy of some really bad animation. I mean, yeah, charming. So I'm making these animations, and the thing that I worked on last night was a little piece of pie. Because the little piece of pie, we have this sort of Mary's Bakery thing going on, nicknames for people. Stephanie Cake started it all because her screen name is Stephanie Cake, and so we call her the Cake. And Stephanie Cake used to watch the show, and now she's a producer of the show on air, and we'll hear from her soon. And the marketing gal, Susanna, she's the pie. We have cake, we gotta have pie. There may be another item added to the bakery later. So, this little piece of animation is going to be pie, telling you all about why you should subscribe and how, So I was working on it last night, and I realized then why I like doing this show. And I'm not going to cry every time I do these monologues. Sometimes they'll be funny, but they'll always be quilt related or quilt nerd related. It's taken me 43 years or so to figure out that everything I want to do is everything I used to do when I was a kid that I loved. Yeah. And I mean, I really resent, in fact, I did a poem about it years ago, about it, how I really resented when people who were older than me, I was in my 20s when I wrote the poem, and I performed it a lot. It's on YouTube, and you can watch it. It's called I Am So Young. And I really hated the way older people would be like, oh, you're young. What you're worried about, it doesn't matter because you're so young, And I don't want to be the person who says that to younger people, but I do see how it's taken me a long time to realize that what I have always loved is, the thing that I should have been doing all along. But you don't know that when you're so young. You don't know that. And you can't do it. And very few people get to do what they absolutely want to do their whole life. And I've done basically what I want to do my whole life, but it's this project, this Quilt Nerd show, that has shown me it's really gotten to the bone. It's like cut to the bone of what I've always loved, which is bad animation, which we're about to see, being curious and weird, okay, a little bit weird, and performance. I'm very awkward in my life, but here I can talk to you, and it's safe in a way, and it's fun, and I don't have to, if I sweat, you won't see it on my body. I have a hard time in social situations. I really do. I don't know. But here I can be with you. And so all of this is to say that it's taken me a while. And if when I was a kid, I loved to make collages, and I loved to read books, and I love magazines, and I loved writing words. And what Quilt Nerd allows, and I loved hanging out with my friends, And so the reason that I'm telling you all of this is to say that if you know what you love, you know what it is. And the quilts that you make, you love to make quilts. Most of us who watch this show love that. Are you really, 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 really making the things that you love, that are you, And I'm not trying to be like, tonight I'm going to give a motivational speech. I'm literally telling you what I was thinking about as I was making a piece of pie bounce around on a screen and blink and jump up and down. Whee! I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy right now. Oh my God, this is what I've always wanted, And it's crazy because I got to do some of that, a little bit, flashes here and there. And I scanned a copy of Quilty Magazine, or the cover of Quilty Magazine, and a few pages from it. Because if you remember Quilty Magazine, there was a little character in that magazine called Spoolie. And I drew Spoolie. And Spoolie was this little spool of thread. And he bounced through the magazine and he gave the tips. So Quilty was this magazine. It was a show on the internet. You can watch many 5 years worth of Quilty online. Me telling you how to quilt, how to make quilts with lots of wonderful guests. And so I got Spoolie in there, that was me. But I had to do a lot of stuff that wasn't me so much. But today with Quilt Nerd, it's like Spoolie is Spoolie's in the building, right? And I'm really grateful for that. And not everybody can access that by 43. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes you got to do it with a hobby or something. But I'm very, very grateful for this project. That's what I want to say. I'm going to show you the pie animation. It's ridiculous. It's not finished. Clearly. And I'll show you a picture of Spoolie too, because Spoolie was that flicker of like, I'm in here, I'm working in a machine that I didn't create, but like, I'm weird and it wants to come out. And I'm very grateful to you for watching Quilt Nerd and supporting it, because we're a year in, and I want big things for this show, because it's a place for the keep quilts weird people to be, and I would have loved this show back then, Okay, let me show you this thing. It's crazy. It's so ridiculous. I don't even know what to say. I just saw Jan make stuff say, preach, girl. I say to Eric, I think I've said this before, I say, is that my husband? And he goes, and I go, is that Jan make stuff? Okay, anyway. All right, here's this thing. It's ridiculous. I put music to it just so you'd perhaps accept it in a way that you might not if there was no sound. Okay, here we go. It's like, I don't know, 20 seconds or something. You ready? Okay. This is just the draft. See, and she's going to be talking. She'll be like, you can subscribe today, and this is how you do it. You should subscribe because Mary needs your support to keep the show going. Oh, that's me. That's my face. Oh, this is the best part. Whee! Whoa! Here's how you subscribe. Go to the link and da-da-da-da-da. Quilt Nerd needs your support. Subscribing is loving. Whee! That's it. That's all I got. It's fun, isn't it? It's so much fun. And I love doing it. And there's no quilt in it, I know. But like, to have a quilt bouncing around, it's like, okay, we get it. You love quilts, okay. I also love pie. If you want to start a show called Pie Nerd, be my guest. And seriously, please do that. And then just because I did scan it, I'll show you this. This is Quilty. And I was thinking like at one point, we should look at an issue of Quilty. That'd be fun. That was a long time ago. It was the first time I was ever the editor of a magazine. And talking about stuff I did as a kid. Are you kidding me? I made magazines all the time. I loved it. I made a magazine in my junior high school. Here's Spoolie. Let me get here. I made a magazine in junior high school called Truth Magazine. We watched something on Russian, like Pravda. Pravda was like this like propaganda magazine. We watched some film strip on like Russian propaganda, and I was like, Pravda, truth. It means truth in Russian. And I was like, oh, I was in 7th grade. It was like, we need a magazine in this school. It was great. Anyway, it was mimeographed on different colored construction paper. That was our exciting artistic choice. Anyway, here's Spoolie. Happy holidays, And I remember with Spoolie, and listen, let me just say this, and just in case I need to say it. This is not for me to like walk down memory lane and be like, I'm literally, I can be, well, anyway. I'm telling you this because I hope that you'll get something out of it. I'm not telling you all this because I'm not trauma dumping on you. You know what I mean? Like, I hope I don't need to say that, but just in case there's somebody out there who's like, who cares? It's not for me. I already figured this out. I figured this out last night. I'm telling you. So just in case it helps you, you can, take what you want. Take what you want and leave the rest. So anyway, so here's Spoolie down here. Oh, look, we had such great columnists. Amy Ellis. Amy Ellis, who became an editor of Curated Quilts, right? You remember Amy Ellis? I mean, you don't need to remember her. She's active and fabulous and fabulously successful. Ebony Love, a friend of mine. I have not seen Ebony in a very long time. Vanessa Vargas Wilson. I mean, talk about an empire. God, we were all babes in the woods. Look how young we are. Anyway, and then there's Spoolie. And somebody told me, note that the pie that I drew was also winking in one of its incarnations. But Spoolie, I was like, I think there should be a spool of thread in Quilty Magazine, and it should bounce around and give you tips on what to do in your sewing. And they were like, great, if you want a spool of thread, you're going to have to draw it because we're not spending money on an artist. And I was like, cool. So I drew it, and there it is. Anyway, but with Quilt Nerd, I can do a lot more, and I'm really grateful, But it took me a long time. There's Spoolie. Somebody made me a plush Spoolie. I'll find it and show you. Anyway, that's all. That's what I wanted to say is dig deep, find what made you happy before you had to make money at it or before you had to prove anything, and definitely work that into your life in some way, whether it's in your quilts or whatever. It's good. It feels good, Have I mentioned please subscribe to the show? Okay, great. Everybody, it is really, really good to be here. I'm going to talk about this quilt behind me. Wait a minute. I'm going to talk about this quilt behind me. I'm going to say hi to a couple people here real quick. Oh, no, that's what I needed to do. Sorry. I needed to do this. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And Richard's here. Hey, Richard. The orange and green quilt with Spooky. What's Spooky? I mean, Spoolie. It's your favorite ever? Really? Richard, we're going to have to look at an issue of Quilty Magazine. It was a good magazine. I was real proud of it. It was because the quilts were great and people who contributed to the magazine were great. It was great. It was very different. Mimi, Blue's Clues. Mimi, it's great to see you. M. Hicks, it's always good to see you. Grover's in the chat. Grover loves lemon meringue pie. Same. Thanks, Kay. Lady K Quilts, yes. Yeah, an issue of Quilty. I love that. And the Flinster. Wait a minute. Where's my soundboard? Hang on. Sometimes it needs a minute. It needs a minute. NDH, subscribed with Prime. NDH has been subscribed for 11 months. I appreciate you. That's amazing. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Mama Llama. Oh my God. People are loving the pie. I'm glad to see it. I love to see it. Raffles here. Rock Dog's here. The gang is here. Artisan Ed. Artisan Ed is back. It's great to see you. Sonia's here. Sonia. So I'm going to go to Joyce Fivers Robin. I'm going to go into this quilt. Hey, Ivana. And Pecky Belly. And then I'm going to chat with you as the show goes along. Stephanie Cake is here. Stephanie, how are you? You help me monitor the chat and answer questions and just and at the cake break, you're going to talk about September, which is this huge promotion Twitch is doing that you can save a lot of money on a subscription to Quilt Nerd. So she's going to talk about that. But how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I got through that math you asked me to do.
Oh, yeah. The math. How much money you can save. Mm-hmm. That's good. I'm excited to see the math. I did not even try to do it myself. That would have been really scary. Okay. Ooh. Oh, she's got a note card, people. She has a note card. Okay, here's my text for this quilt. I thought this would be a good quilt. It's very summery, you could say, or it's I don't know. It looks like a rainforest, perhaps. And it's September. It's post Labor Day. But the thing is about what's happening right now where I am is we're having a bit of a heat wave. Today and yesterday, pretty good. Really nice, actually. But it's going to be, very hot. And that means I might actually be streaming from my house. I'll have this set up, but in my house because it just gets too hot in this office. I can't do it. So I thought, well, it feels tropical and muggy, and it just, I don't know. I like this quilt too. I think it's interesting, and I also like the story behind it. So I thought I would put it into the show. This quilt was made by Denise Vanderlucht. It's Vanderlugt. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing here just first before I start going in. Thanks for listening to that. That's, you know, I'll try to bring something interesting each time, you know. We'll see. We'll just see. Denise Vanderlugt, Vanderlugt, is Australian. She's from Australia. And this quilt is called My Garden. And it's cotton, poly cotton, stranded embroidery thread. Interesting. It's hand appliqued, hand quilted, and embroidered. And it's interesting. I mean, the embroidery on it. So you have the butterfly antennae, and you have the bird beaks and the feet that are embroidered. But like, it looks as though there's embroidery around the shapes, but I don't know. I can't tell if I think it's just the quilting, right? It's just the quilting on the leaf. That's quilting. That's not embroidery. But here, the stamen of this nasturtium, looks embroidered. So I really like the way she did the different textures. I really like it. Here's what she has to say about My Garden. I don't have a year on it, which is strange, but this book was published in 1989. Cake, I'll give you the name. It's this book. I forgot this one. I gave you the other ones, but
I already posted it. I saw it.
She's so good. She's really good. You know what? She's really good. Yeah. She says of this, quote, "I live on 5 acres of rainforest that I'm regenerating and clearing of lantana." I don't know what that is. "I'm surrounded by the clear atmosphere of the Whitsundays." There's a lot of Australian-ish words that I do not know. "The cool aquas and blues, the rich greens and exotic colors are all around me, and it's hard not to put them into my work. I remember that as a little girl, if I had any spare time," oh, that's interesting, right on time, "I'd be mucking up bits of material and embroidering them. Now I enjoy doing it with my own fabrics." It's interesting. I did not read this beforehand. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier, right? What I did as a young person, right? What she did when she was younger, she's doing now. So, quote, "I was introduced to quilting when I was supervisor of a craft program," I like this bird, "at an old people's home in Canada. 6 years ago, I gave up working at the Handicap Center in Proserpine to begin full-time quilting. In my garden, I have food plants to attract the exotic Ulysses and Cairns birdwing butterflies, nectar-bearing flowers to attract noisy rainbow lorikeets, and tiny sunbirds, and seeds falling to the ground from fruit-bearing rainforest trees to feed the lovely green-winged pigeon. All these creatures visit my garden and have provided inspiration for this quilt. The colors are those of tropical North Queensland, where everything seems larger and more extreme than in other places." Nice. I like it. I think it's cool. And it's an unusual shape. Oh, actually, I don't know. I don't think they give...
And by the way,
Yeah.
I happen to know what Whitsundays is. They're a group of islands that are around somewhere in Australia. And I know this because I watch trashy reality TV known as Below Deck.
You know what?
That's what I do. I invented Post-its.
It's very good. That is a very nerdy thing to know, and I like that. And I love that you got it from reality TV. Everything that's really worth knowing. I outed myself to the girls. I mean, I watched Love After Lockup, and I am obsessed with that show. Okay. It's really good. So trashy, but love it. Thank you, my great cats. Totally. Below Deck, Joyous Fibers. You didn't say it. Below Deck? We're gonna hang out. I mean, we did hang out at QuiltCon. You and me and Sylvia and Marcia and Molly and so many others. We need to do it again. Okay. I made the chat screen on the screen a little bit smaller. I'm still working on it, you guys. I'm working on making it go on the side, and things are always hey, Word and Bernard, things are always kind of scooting around. Okay, so let's get a bit serious here, because what Cake, can you tell me who was it who suggested that we talk about 9/11 quilts? It was 9/11 on Sunday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we didn't talk about, we didn't observe 9/11 or pay our respects in a way on Saturday. And so I thought we would touch on it today. I mean, it's important to, it's important to recognize these things. I mean, we talked about the Lowell Mill girls, around Labor Day, Memorial Day. I think we talked about veterans quilts and things. I mean, it's like quilts touch everything that we do, and they are part of the culture. So, what do quilts have to say in terms of the 9/11 anniversary, right? And there's a lot actually to say. And so I'm going to share with you some quilts from this particular project, America from the Heart, Quilters Remember September 11th, 2001.
And it was Mother Nature that requested it and a content director. And I believe she's here. Yep, there she is.
Yay, Mother Nature. Hi, Sylvia.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, Mother Nature, if you have any personal connection other than I know you live in Maryland near me. And, I know that as Americans, 9/11 was a big deal to all of us. But certainly for the people that live close to D.C. or Pennsylvania or New York, were like really impacted. So, I don't know if you have any personal connection or not, but
Cake, if you don't mind, where were you? Like, I have a person to talk to, like in person, digital as it may be. I mean, what was your? While I kind of get this part ready, I mean, it's ready, but where were you? What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was. I was working for the first software company I ever worked for, and I was in human resources at the time, so it was a career ago. But I'm in Baltimore, so we really just didn't quite know what was happening. We were seeing the news from New York. My husband actually came home unexpectedly, and to pick something up and turn on the TV, and then he called me and said, "Do you know what's going on?" And my whole job was like, huh? And then this is the time we didn't have smartphones, so we didn't know. And we happened to have a TV, and we all tuned into the TV, and we're like, what is happening? And as everything was coming out, okay, I see there's lots of people in this area that have some connection here. But my mom, who I see is here, IWC Quilts.
Hey,
She is a recently retired federal employee, and she working in DC, and we hear the Pentagon was hit, and I, of course, couldn't get in touch with her. And we just, we had no idea what was happening. And she worked, and I know, Mom, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think she worked not far from the Capitol. She was, in an agency, but when you hear the Pentagon say it, you think, oh my God, the White House or the Capitol's coming next, right? Oh. And so, yeah, it just was, and I think anybody of a certain age is going to remember where they were. Absolutely. I remember growing up, people saying, I knew where I was, when we heard about JFK.
Yes, exactly.
Or I knew where I was when XYZ happened. Right.
When the pandemic got real. Like,
yeah. Oh, I remember that date. It was March 13th.
Yep. Yes, exactly. When they closed Disneyland and the NBA went, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
There were other things.
And I just, around this time of year, it we never forget. Obviously, the pain gets a little bit easier. But, my child is 25, and he, at the time, was, a little one, and he didn't understand what was happening. And he, we kind of started unpacking some of that over the last few years.
Really?
And trying to see, it's still, I still remember that trauma of that moment of not knowing what was happening and just being so scared. And him not knowing what was happening, that was a big deal for us to realize that he experienced that same kind of trauma. So yeah. How old was he then? Experience. He would have been how old then? He was he 5? He was 4 or 5. I'm doing the math.
Yeah, that's old enough to know something's wrong, right? Yeah. Something.
He was 4.
Wow. So yeah, I Yeah, downtown. I know DC pretty well, IWC, so I know exactly where that is. I Street, downtown. Wow. Word and Bird Nerd was working
because you lived in DC, right? For a little
I did,
bit?
yeah, I did. Some years, I mean, yeah, like 5 years ago or something. I really like DC, so I can imagine. I mean, God. Mother Nature says, as a quilter, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing there's a lot of folks in here. I mean, we've got first responders in our nerdery, and we've got people that worked in DC, and and
Incredible.
oh gosh, it's just like a big heart connection when you think about these things, because even if you were not a first responder or directly impacted there, we still were there for each other.
Yes.
And I'm getting long-winded here, but I guess what I was going to say is the one thing that I heard on Sunday is, and I know to those of you that are newer here, I can tell you we don't get into politics and things on the show. But what I can say is we have, discussed a little bit of divisiveness at times. And I think our world right now is so different than it was in September 2001, right? I mean, and when tragedy brings people together, and I feel like the pandemic was a tragedy that tore us apart a little bit, So I think we could kind of learn some things about where we were back then. And
that's interesting, Cake, and it's also like we were all, anybody who's here right now, has a story of that day, and like we experienced it together. And it's true with the pandemic too. In the beginning we were all like, oh my God, it's like World War II, everybody really came together. It at least that's the story we hear is that people came together, victory gardens and all that stuff, and it was really like, we got to get through this together. And then the pandemic was a different story. But with September 11th, it blindsided everybody so much, and it was so devastating. Even if you didn't agree with the policies, even if you didn't, it was like unbelievable what happened. And by telling the stories that we have, like even in the chat, even talking about this tonight, reminds us that like we're of a time in America where we lived and that happened, and so like looking at quilts about it and talking about it is like pretty important. This is our country, right? And we all lived during that thing. I mean, I didn't live during World War II, but I lived during this, and and so that's like who we are as like a country, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I'm glad, Mother Nature, I'm so glad you suggested this. I hate to think I would have like missed it. I don't know, but I'm really glad that you suggested it. Thanks, Cake. Thanks for sharing that, and I'm so glad your mom's here. IWC Quilts. I didn't actually realize that was your Steph's mom. I didn't realize that was your screen name, so watch out. You're gonna get a soundboard treatment. So this quilt is called, let me see down in here. You know what? I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna take the chat box off the screen tonight. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna see how we feel about it. I'm just gonna see. Remember, year 2 is all about experimentation. And like, right, Steph? I mean, we can try that tonight, right? Let's just see what happens. Because the replay, you can watch the chat, I think. You should be able to. Okay. So this quilt, and I can go back to the one I showed a little bit earlier. I just wanted to, show the visuals as we were talking about all this. But these are from, these quilts that you're seeing are from this book. And I can tell you how it's a project. So Carrie Bresenhan was in charge of this book. She started Quilt Festival and Quilt Market. And she says in her foreword, I'll just give you just a little bit of it. She says, quote, on September 11th, when the towers collapsed, the Pentagon burst into flame, and the plane went down in Pennsylvania, the world as we knew it changed forever. The quilters of America reacted no differently than the rest of their fellow countrymen. They were stunned, horrified, shocked, disbelieving of what their own eyes showed them. Like everyone else, they were paralyzed in front of their televisions. Quilters in other countries, too. After the tears, when they felt they could cry no more, the quilters turned to their art to try to make sense of the senseless tragedy that had hit our country. Quilters in other countries, too, felt the same compulsion to work out their anger and grief in quilts that conveyed the statement we heard over and over, today we too are Americans. Because I'm skimming, this is an excerpt I'm putting together as I read this. Because I participate in an online discussion group, Quilt Art, I knew how grief-stricken and frustrated many of the quilt artists were. Reading how they were trying to make quilts to work through their sorrow and anger, I realized many quilters everywhere were probably facing the same challenge. So shortly after the tragedies, I announced on the message board and across the website and their website and the internet that we would create a spontaneous exhibit, America from the Heart, to be seen at International Quilt Market and International Quilt Festival. This is the quilt that's on the cover. I'm going to go back and tell you a little bit more about the quilts, but the exhibit was to be shown at Market and Festival, then only 6 weeks away. 6 weeks away. The show was sold out, and we already had more than 35 special quilt exhibits, which left us no room to add another one, but I was determined that the quilts had to be seen. So I told the quilters, you make them, we will hang them. We'll show every quilt that's submitted. Whoa, I didn't know that. We'll show every quilt that's submitted? That's crazy because, we were in Birmingham, and that is not a juried show. If you send a quilt into that show, they will hang your quilt, but not festival, man. Not International Quilt Festival. That thing's fancy. So they hung every quilt that was submitted, and I went through and picked some of my favorites. I love this one. It looks a little bit like... it's not Yvonne Wells. There's another one that looks like Yvonne Wells, but I love this one. Anyway, so no rules, back to Carrie, no rules, no jurying, just quilts from the heart. The only restrictions were that we would show no quilts that conveyed messages of hate, and we reserved the right to remove a quilt if it created undue distress. Well, that's interesting. Interesting. I expected perhaps 50 quilts. Instead, we received almost 300. Yeah. And so then they talked about the logistics of the exhibit. The resulting exhibit was unforgettable, moving, heartbreaking, and inspiring. The quilt makers ranged from world-class quilt artists to women creating their first quilt to fifth graders. Oh, I've got the fifth graders quilt. You better believe it. They were not only American, but Canadian, Israeli, Japanese. They sent quilts from Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, Spain, and the United Arab Emirates. So there's the whole book of these exists. And they're great, right? They're great. This one I liked. So this is from Donna Mikesh, and there's good captions for each quilt, so I'm going to read some of them. Shortly after, she's from Kingwood, Texas. This is called Our Whole Block Flew the Flag. I haven't read these, so we'll see what happens. Shortly after the terrible tragedies of September 11th, says Donna, we put our flag out in response to all the patriotic activities. Soon I noticed that every house on our short block was proudly flying our flag. Perhaps one of the good things to come out of these horrible days is a return to patriotic feelings about our country. Oh, Donna. It's a great privilege to live in. It's like, it is different, right? Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard. It's actually kind of hard. And I know not everybody did rally around the flag at September 11th. There were people who said, you know what? We saw it coming. This is terrible. I know that. It's not some monolith. But there was a lot of, I don't know. This is what she experienced, right? Everybody was like flying their flag in their yard. I like the block. I like the term the block. There's a solidarity in like the block. So it's a great privilege to live in a country where we're free to practice our religion, to speak out as we see fit, to pursue jobs and activities we wish, and as women, to be able to do all the above. Here. In spite of all its faults, we live in a remarkable country. We owe it to all the people who lost their lives to keep it free. This quilt is made in response to all of this, the sadness, the courage, and patriotism. Nice. I liked what she had to say very much. Very much. So this is the cover quilt. That's just like super pretty. I want to know about this. One. This is by Pamela Allen. And like so much of what I find for the show, I go for... Ivana, it's so good to see you. Have I mentioned that? It was good to see you the other day. I saw Ivana the other day. Anyway, so, and when are you coming on the show? I got a seat right here. I'll make room on the green screen. Anyway, so like this happens so much with the show is like I was looking through this book, picking the quilts that I liked the best to show you, and I'm like, oh, I love this Pamela Allen. Who is this Pamela Allen? And so I went looking for her a little bit, and there's like a video on the YouTubes where she talks about art quilts. Hi. It's my friend. And yeah. So we're gonna like check out Pamela Allen. But this quilt is called Compassion Giving Comfort, and I love it. It's 40 by 60 inches. Pamela Allen, she's from Ontario, Canada, Kingston. Pamela Allen says, quote, although I have been experimenting with fabric as an art medium for about a year, interesting, I had never actually made a quilt. What?
That's what I do. I invented Post-its.
Are you kidding me? Dude. Okay, good job. Back to Pamela. I felt the events of 9/11 compelling me to embark on my first effort to use the quilt as an artistic expression. It's very interesting. I have used fabric from a wide range of sources. Salvation Army resurrections, pieces given to me by helpful friends on various quilting lists, and pieces salvaged from my own clothing. They began to represent the universal involvement of all of us in this tragedy. Universal involvement. Yes, that's great. That's it. My message is that we seek peace, help each other, and conduct our lives with compassion. Well, there you go, Ms. Allen. Damn. Okay. Oh, here's our 5th grader. It's ridiculous. It's so great. I tried to copy all of... Wait a minute. Yeah. This is called What Happened. What Happened. He was 11. Sorry. You know what? I'm so mad at myself. Here we go. Chris Wyant, age 11. It's called What Happened. Now, this does remind me a little bit of Yvonne Wells' quilts, and you know those quilts well. But, I mean, there's a lot of religious iconography in her quilts. The shape of this mountain or hill, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and there's sort of the gesture reminds me of Wells. But anyway, Mr. Wyant from Texas, he says, quote, I was inside the classroom when a teacher walked in. Then we all went to another teacher's room and saw the second plane crashing through the World Trade Center on television. I thought, what's going on? I had to watch the news to find out. They showed replays of it happening over and over and over. I wanted it all to stop. There is also, by the way, a 9/11 Memorial Quilt there's a 9/11 quilt in the 9/11 museum. At least there was when I was there. I'm sure it's a permanent part of it. I didn't actually pull that up. Next year, we can look at that. But
yeah, I would think.
Yeah, there is.
I can't picture it in my mind, but yeah, I would think that's still there.
Yeah, it's there. It's got to be there. I saw it before. I mean, it's a community, quilt. Yeah. This is pretty powerful, I think. There's this is Carol Breyer Fowler. So when Carrie Bresnahan said, there were these famous quilt makers and these, 5-year-old or 11-year-old quilt makers, this is the very famous Carol Breyer Fowler, who did Corona too. And this is 18 by 18 inches, so it's pretty small. But I feel like the way she did the eye is very, it's really, it looks afraid. Like it looks afraid. And this, I don't know, she's just perfectly done. She's in Illinois. I always forget that. Oswego, Illinois. It's called Response Number 1, Stunned. And Carol says, speechless. Can't believe my eyes. Shock. After 28 years as a flight attendant. She was a flight attendant. Whew. After 28 years as a flight attendant, this is much too close. Perspective and words of wisdom may come later. I believe that beauty and love are the antidote to hate, so I will focus on beauty and love. I hope I'm right. Oof. Wow. She was a flight attendant. I know my mom told me that before, but I didn't know. I mean, I hadn't remembered that. Oh my God. I believe that beauty and love are the antidote to hate. So I will focus on beauty and love. I hope I'm right. I'm going to write that one down too. A couple more. This one, and then I've got, to round out this portion of the show, I've got a couple that are not from this project, but to me are worth showing. And it's, September 11th or not, like taking a moment to realize like there's some really powerful quilts that take the sort of grand themes of the best of what we want to be around here, in the United States and really communicate it really well. There's quilts that do that. This is Kay Fassett and Liza Pryor-Lucy and Bobby Penniman. It's called Fragmented Flag. And this picture is not amazing. Like the pictures in the book are really good. This is sort of low res, but you can tell, you see that cave fabric? I really like the way they did this. I know, right? So it's like kind of this craze, like as in crazing on a pot or some kind of, it's like a mosaic. I think it's a really neat technique.
It reminds me of a cobblestone quilt, but I don't know that. Liz might be raw edges, maybe, I'm guessing.
Yeah, maybe.
I can't tell if the resolution's not as that good.
It's not terrific, but seeing the negative space, like you can kind of see how they put it together. I really like this. I like the technique that they used for the stripes. I'm going to leave it right there so you can all kind of analyze it a little bit. So this is, what they have to say about it is, it's brief. It's called Fragmented Flag. And it says, this is Kate speaking, quote, "Mosaic piecing expresses my feeling of fragility and vulnerability of this country after appearing so invincible. Arriving from England after the disaster, I was struck by the blossoming of old glories on every building and many cars. The shattered lives and windows resulting from the towers are echoed in the fractured mosaic shards." Yeah. Incredible. Hey, SJ. Not yet. We're talking about September 11th quilts because it's important to observe the day, right? It's important to observe the day. So I've got another one here. This is an interesting one. Hang on. Just a couple more and then I'll show you. I liked this one because, part of what was so crazy about everything that happened was, remember the rule for this show is to tell the truth. It's not about an agenda. It's not about my opinion about a thing. It is the truth. The truth is that there was racism at that time because, if you can not justify it, but explain it or sort of, say why this might have happened, because people were afraid, all that hateful stuff comes out of fear and vulnerability and anxiety, and we're all, we're all, animals, right? Fighting for survival, so there was some hateful stuff, right? That's the reason Carrie Bressenhan was like, we wouldn't hang a quilt that had like hateful messages on it. And that's because, there was a lot of really scary rhetoric from some people about people from other countries who want to harm us, and it's like, not justifying it, but you can say, people were scared and they were like, this knee jerk or this like base instinct crap, right? It was just scary. It's not going to solve anything, it's not going to help anyway. So I liked this quilt because you have these different hands coming toward, the flag to heal, it seems. These are not angry hands in this quilt. These are hands of all shades saying, look, let's protect, let's heal, and I liked that. There's a lot of quilts that are flags. There's a lot of quilts that are, doves and things. Awesome. I'm here for it. But I liked this one because, A, it looked like she traced around a garden glove. Love it. That's exactly what I would have done. I mean, come on. Like, come on. And then also, I thought it was cool. And it is also a fact that Mayor Giuliani was a different man. It was a different man. It was a different man. Whatever you think about him, things were different for Giuliani back then. So it's got Giuliani's name on it, which is an interesting piece of history. Anyway, it's called America 9/11/01, A New Day of Infamy. It's by Anne Kreuts, Kreuts, from Iowa. Interesting. She says, quote, "When designing my quilt for this exhibit, I decided to use some of the fabrics that I purchased on a shop hop. 10 of the fabrics in this quilt are from that trip. I wanted to catalog the events of that day, as well as commemorate some of the people and slogans that have become well known since September 11th. The cross is the primary means of comfort for not only me, but for many of the accounts of families I have read about. Our faith in Christ sustains and saves us. Our leaders have taken a tragic situation and shown true leadership capability. We should all be proud of them. Let us pray. God bless America." I'm into it. My grandma was like the coolest, man. She was like a Christian lady from Mississippi, but she never like, she was just cool. She was like, "Honey, don't be hateful. Don't be ugly to your sister." It's like, anyway, she was just great about it. And I like this quilt. This quilt seems like very, if you're going to be talking about, faith in Christ, like, well, this is a pretty good example of like, the way to do it. Lots of people coming together, making stuff better. I'm into it. Okay, so then I thought, there's other really great quilts in that book. This one's cool. I chose a lot of different ones to talk about, and I try to read the room even though I'm looking into the void. And this one was interesting. This one looked just like the playing card. This one looked like the quilts from the playing card book, right, that we talked about. I think it's even called Eight of Hearts. Yeah, it's called Eight of Hearts. I don't think it's in that book. I don't think so. Anyway, but it's that sort of that art quilt playing card shape. But then I thought, just to kind of round it out, this is an old book. This is All Flags Flying, which was part of the Great American Quilt Festival long ago. And we've talked a little bit about that festival, but I don't know. There were quilts back from this period of time, which was the 80s. This is from the 1980s. And I love this quilt. It's so great. It's got letters on it. There's no backwards N on this one, unfortunately. But it's great. And I think these sort of like broader patriotic quilts are really appropriate as well, to observe some moment in American history, whether it's Labor Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, whatever. This was made in 1985. Pat Carambe of Connecticut. Red and white schoolhouse quilts were very popular during the 19th century. The motif is especially appropriate for this artist because she was once an elementary school teacher. Her fondness for patriotic music is reflected through the inclusion of song titles that enclose the schoolhouses. Most quilters discover special pleasures in their work, and Pat says, quote, "When I was making this piece, it was the first time in a long time that I had thought in depth about my own pride in being an American. One of the wonderful things about quilting is that there are times in the process when your mind is free and your hands continue to do the mechanical parts unconsciously. I believe a quilt must be functional." Sorry, I also really like that. I don't believe it has to be, but I like it. "I believe a quilt must be functional. It's something that must warm people physically and mentally. A quilt must also have an interesting visual design and be made with lots of love and feeling. I've only been making quilts for 2 years. My first effort won Best First Quilt at the prestigious Northfield Quilt Festival in Vermont in '85. I'm hooked. I'll go on," unquote. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I like this a lot. Oh, this one. Oh, I had to show you this one. I mean, I can't. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I can finally show that quilt, on the show because it makes sense, That y'all are gonna. So, Light of Liberty by Carol Ann Grotrian of Quincy, Massachusetts. Again, Great American Quilt Festival. So you remember the people each. Wait a minute. It's the Great American Quilt Festival, right? Monica Calvert and everything? No, wait. Anyway, I'm just going to continue, and then we'll... Suddenly I'm down. Remember when I showed a quilt from like the New York, from the 1893 World's Fair, and I was like, this was made for the Columbian Exhibition in Chicago in 1934. And it was like, no, that was not from that time. So suddenly I'm scared, and I don't want to say something that's wrong. Anyway, this quilt was made in 1985 by Caroline Grotrian. Previous experience with hand-dyed fabrics made it possible for the artist to make the light radiating from Liberty's torch the central symbol of this quilt. The bird's eye view of the Statue of Liberty and Bedloe's Island on which she stands is a fascinatingly original and startlingly powerful approach. The artist recalled... Do you see it? You see it, right? I don't want to zoom in so you can just like see it. It's the bird's eye view of the Statue of Liberty. The artist recalled, quote, "The deadline made quilting over Christmas a necessity, even on the plane home. With the chaos of excited children and adults, never-ending Christmas cookies," because remember, we're back in 85, it was before September 11th, "never-ending Christmas cookies and eggnog, near misses were a continual threat. The biggest problem came at the end of quilting. I mark as I go, made a mistake, and the last corner came out wrong. This required removing stitches and remaking a sizable portion. One large patch was damaged in the process. I held my breath and appliqued a new piece on top. It's not detectable, but I learned how fragile and resilient quilts can be," unquote. Yeah, she started quilting in 1979. Her first full-size bed quilt wasn't until 82. Look at what she did. Ugh. That's like, oh yeah, that would, I mean, if I ran into like a place in a project where I needed to make like a quarter of it over again, I'd probably do it, but I would not be fun to be around. Not because I'd be like ragey and mean, but because I'd be like, like, and people who love me would be like, "You don't have to do this," and I'd be like, "Yes, I do." Okay, by the way, can we appreciate the quilting on this? I mean, this is Quilt Nerd. This is what we do. Check this out. Really, really, really. Like, OMG. First of all, I love this, like a slightly different clamshell. I love it. It's a clamshell outline with bisected. That's cool. That's a screenshot. I hope you folks do your screenshotting of this show because I think there's a lot of stuff to screenshot. Yeah, Yvonne, you'd be both. Yeah, it could be. I would have like flashes of like, "Get away from me. You don't understand." And then be like, "I'm not good enough. Why did I think I could do this?" And then you have this kind of stippling. Is this hand? Wait a minute. No, this is machine quilted for sure. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it does seem...
I don't know. I think that looks hand quilted.
Maybe it is, but this texture is kind of freaking me out. Like, what's...
Yeah, that little dash.
What's that about?
They're not straight. Yeah, I mean, they're straight lines, but they're broken. Mm-hmm. That's almost, and I know I always pronounce it wrong, but it's hard for me to say it the right way. Sashiko. I think it's pronounced Sash.
I think it's Shas.
I can never say it right.
Now you got me screwed up. Sashiko. I'm pretty sure it's Sashiko.
Anyway,
yeah.
That lovely form of Japanese sewing. That's what it reminds me of.
Yes. It does remind me of that. And this is like Stitch in the Ditch, except, I mean, that's just straight line grid quilting. It's great. Oh, and look at this, though. Ugh, I love the excuse to have a quilt up on the screen to look at with you guys because like it's so cool. I didn't look at this close before. I was just like, oh my god, I love that quilt. I mean, just the way, now let's zoom out and see how she did. I was putting together a folder of quilts that do transparency, give the effect of transparency really well. This one. I mean, look, this is why you gotta have this stuff out in the world. The modern quilter, any modern quilter today needs to see this quilt. You gotta see it. It's so great. The color study alone, and just like the way it's quilted. I mean, oh my God! Look, it's bricks. It's bricks. It's bricks at the pediment, the foundation of the statue. She quilted bricks in there. It's genius. I don't know. Am I wrong? It's stunning, Pem. It's Susan or Michael knows. Everybody feels this way. Kitty Hannah. Well, what else would she be doing on the plane? Yeah, exactly. Right. She's quilting. Exactly. I love the idea of a woman in 1985, like, not looking at a phone on a plane, but like hand quilting a quilt in a hoop, because I don't know, my mom was hand quilting in a hoop in 1985. Anyway, it's genius. I mean, it's just All Flags Flying. Listen, this is a book to get for sure.
How big is that, Mary?
Oh yeah, good question. This is 72 by 72. Pretty big, especially looking at the other quilts that we had. Two more. These are wonderful. God, oof, these are really great. This one, I thought, you know what? September 11th, it's like, what's our hope? Where's our hope? There's like 52 quilts in this All Flags Flying book. You know, which ones do I pick, right? Well, I picked this one. Because, I mean, you got to appreciate the perspective achieved here. I mean, like, I try to, like, draw you saw the pie animation. That's as good as it gets over here. This person's doing piecing at, like, some sort of, like, looking up at a statue. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it right there.
And that looks like needle turn to me. So that's not raw edge. That's yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's some intricate stuff.
This is really good. As we're working on the finding aid for the Quilt Nerd Library, you know, one thing that we love to note is long captions. This would be an example of the long caption, which is beautiful. I love it. Okay, long caption. This is called "World Peace is the Ultimate Liberty." World Peace is the Ultimate Liberty by Rosemary Wade of Franklin, Tennessee. This is 72 by 72 as well. Oh, maybe that they had to be. I don't know. Well, I don't know that, but interesting. Cotton and cotton print. The maker of this quilt spent nearly 100 hours in conceptualizing and drawing her design. While some quilt makers cut paper templates and patterns, she executed her work entirely freehand. In the top right corner, there is a quilted outline of a face. What? In the top right corner, there is a quilted outline of a face. Okay, we can't see it in this photo, but that's okay. A spiritual being symbolizing prayer. In the bottom left corner, we may be able to see this part. In the bottom left corner, there are several quilted hands releasing doves. Oh, yes. You see? Here, I'm gonna do this. Several quilted hands releasing doves, symbolizing peace. Some artists choose to use thread of contrasting colors to emphasize their quilting. Others, like Rosemary Wade, prefer the subtleties of matching the thread to the fabrics. She has personalized her textile by appliquing roses instead of stars around the torch. Okay. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Now I have problems. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. That's poetry. It's poetry. She chose to applique roses instead of stars. I mean, I don't know what to say to that. That's insanely beautiful. That is very beautiful. I am glad I am not on camera because I am super welling up. The artist enjoys using solid color, crisp outline quilting, and dramatic prints in all of her compositions. Well, we're gonna look more at Rosemary Wade. You can bet your button. Rosemary Wade pursues the arts in many areas. She paints watercolors, is a home sewist, and enjoys both needlepoint and embroidery. She views quilting as the most satisfying of all her artistic pursuits. While she worked on this quilt, the artist's sons, aged 5 and 7, often came to observe her progress. They first asked if it was, quote, a picture of King Tut, as the figure had no face. She replied, no, it's Queen Tut. Oh, okay. And also, Well done. It's Queen Tut indeed, unquote. The name stuck, and the quilt will forever be referred to as Queen Tut's portrait in the Wade home. The artist belongs to several guilds. Oh, at that time she maintained a shop strictly Amish, which features quilts made by the Amish in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. Does strictly Amish quilt shops still exist? I wonder. Okay, one more quilt. Sorry, you know what? I mean, I didn't know that we'd linger so long on these particular quilts, but honestly, they're so great. They're so great. I like this one because it looked a little bit like, I mean, it looks like the skyline, right? Which may or may not have been the point. But in terms of like, you know, paying our respects, you know, noting, marking the anniversary of something really, you know, it's really a big deal, right? Really big deal in our country, really, and a lot of people lost their lives. Anyway, we got to note it. And again, Mother Nature, thank you so much for tapping us about it. This is the last quilt for the section. We'll take a break. Kate is going to talk to you about extremely awesome things, and then we'll come back and look at something completely different, believe me. So this is called, it looked like a skyline to me, like the glittering lights of the city. And you know what? Look at the glittering lights of the city. Those are all half square triangles. Simplest patchwork unit around, other than the patch. Just the simple patch would probably be the simplest. But this is by Judy Hopkins of Anchorage, Alaska. It's called Centennial. Many needle artists have great difficulty finding a title that pleases them after they have completed their quilt. The process can become a family affair. Quote, my vocal, opinionated family members blackballed my preferred title, Starship Liberty. These same people have always assigned appropriate weight to my creative activities, giving me lots of time and room, so are allowed their opinions. I know what they said. They're like, Starship Liberty? Mom. It's like the Starship Enterprise. You can't call it that. I agree with them. Anyway. The design for Centennial evolved slowly over a 4-month period. Conceived as a rectangle. Oh, conceived as a rectangle. It seemed impossible to make the design fit a square, which clearly was like the contest requirement, right? Now I understand. So the artist decided to utilize triangles to create her visual image. Execution of this quilt took more than 400 hours that extended over 3 months. That's not very many months. Judy Hopkins has been quilting for nearly 5 years and created several quilts at this time that won recognition. She's a member of the Anchorage Log Cabin Quilters. And she says it's very much a family activity. Quote, my husband frequently reads to me while I quilt. A real bonus. Quote, I love that. Eric reads to me too. So yeah, I love it. I love it. Simple. It's simple. And look at this quilting. Very cool. Very interesting design. I mean, I can't quite. What's the concept there with the quilting? What's going on there? I'm not saying like what was she thinking? I'm just like I mean, clearly this is a very, very specific design choice. Does somebody see it? Judy, wait a minute, Dee Marie. Hello, Dee Marie. Judy Hopkins was a brilliant and a great teacher. It's HST. Hey, Sherlocksos. Dee Dee Brucker, your husband reads to you too. I love it. Eric reads to me. Sometimes when we're falling asleep and I need help falling asleep, it doesn't matter what he reads to me. I'm just like, what are you reading? He's like, I'm rereading Dune. I'm like, great, hit it. And I'll just read Dune and I'll like, anyway, so what are you all seeing here? Looks like waves. It does look like, let me zoom in a little bit more. Hang on. Because it's a repeat. It's definitely repeated. Yeah. I think she used long strips and used the quilting to for the fragmented piecing. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's mirroring.
Okay.
Mirroring
Yeah. You got it. It's great. And it's simple. It's like, what can you do with these patchwork units? You can do so many things with the simplest things, the simplest units. It's wonderful. There's nothing else to it, is there? I mean, it's half square triangles. That's what it is. And then lengths of strips of blue. That wonderful blue. It's great blue. Anyway, everybody, so there you go, Mother Nature. I appreciate you suggesting this or reminding us about this. And I mean, what I've got for you next, forget it. We're gonna watch a little video. And I don't know how much of it we're gonna watch. We might separate it into 2 different nights. I've got so much content tonight. Anyway, but but one of the announcements, and then I'm gonna kick it to Cake. We have a show on Friday morning. This week, every other week, we have a Friday morning quilt show, morning quilt nerd show. So, I mean, I'm already set for Friday's show, if we don't get to everything. Okay, Cake, take it away, my dear. Yvonne, I completely agree with you. Okay, here you go. I'm going to run and do a few things. You ready?
Alrighty.
Woohoo!
The Cake is in charge now.
Okay.
So Mary asked me to talk about a few things. And, you know, I come from fine arts, and Mary comes from performing arts. And, you know, when I was coming right out of college and kind of starting to do my thing, you would have to sort of put your wares out there and hope somebody would buy your stuff, whatever that stuff was. I actually made jewelry coming out of college. And Mary was in performing arts. So in those situations, you read your poetry or you perform your improv or your monologue, and then you pass the hat. So I'm going to pass the hat this time. So this is about September, and Mary mentioned that at the top of the show, but for those of you that weren't here the other night when we talked about September, this is a thing that Twitch is doing, and they're basically giving some, I think they're pretty awesome discounts this month. And the wonderful thing about this, and let me step back a minute, Mary kind of talked about this a little bit, I guess on Saturday, but with your subscriptions, you are supporting the show. You are supporting what Mary does. You're supporting, hopefully, a future payment for me and Susanna. And so if you think about this like it's a startup, you know, you guys are basically supporting this startup organization, whatever this is going to become. And here in the second year, this is kind of like where the rubber hits the road. You know, Mary made it a year, and that is amazing traction. So sort of the next steps are like, this is the pain point. It's kind of like, we have to let you guys in on the specifics about what financial support means in terms of the show. So from Twitch, any of the paid subscriptions, Mary gets half of it. So if you're, on a tier 1 subscription monthly, you're paying $5, Mary gets $2.50. And then, on up the ladder. I know, we have some tier 2 subscribers. We have a couple of tier 3, and Mary gets half of that every month. Now, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, which I am one, I just changed myself over to a tier 2. But the Amazon Prime subscription it's wonderful for people to come in and get a taste of the show. And particularly, if you have, we all have lives. And I know for a while there, I sort of missed a big chunk of Mary's early days because life came up. So I understand, you want to do your Prime subscriptions. You kind of don't have that, what's the word I'm looking for? That subscription that you never use, so you do your Prime subscription, and that is great. That is wonderful. Absolutely not throwing shade at anybody for that. But understand the $2.50 Mary gets from the paid tier 1 versus the Prime subscription that Jeff Bezos takes a big chunk out of. It is a difference. So just so you're aware of that, and I'm not trying to guilt trip anybody. I know that sometimes, the monetary stuff it's difficult for folks sometimes, and especially right now. I know here in the U.S., the economy's not so great. At least gas prices are down some, but I get it. As an example, my mom is fairly recently retired, and I know she's on a fixed income. So I get it. Of course, she's planning on living to be 120, so that's why she's kind of holding back her money. But I'm not sure if she's still here. She'll chime in and yell at me if she is. But bottom line, what I'm saying here is that, supporting the show is is important to us, and Mary is absolutely grateful for anything and everything that folks can do. But I'm not a mathematical person. Mathematic. So when Mary asked me to do the details on this, I had to actually sit down with a calculator. And when I got to the end of this exercise, I went, wow, hey, you guys, you need to change your subscription because here's what is going to happen with September.
Ooh,
and again, it's
I came back just in time.
It's the 13th. September only lasts for a couple more weeks. So this is the math. If you are just new here, you just landed here and you're like, you know what? I like the cut of this woman's jib. I'm going to throw some money at her and I'm going to do 1 month subscription. You're going to get $1 break. That's pretty super.
That's
but
awesome.
if you do a 3-month subscription, you are going to get even more of a break. Instead of paying $5, you're going to pay $3.74. And that works out to $11.22 for 3 months. Instead of $15, which is what you normally pay, and that's a $3.78 savings.
That is good.
$3.78 savings will buy you a discount fat quarter.
You know what? I like that. I like that math. I do that. I'm like, if I don't spend it on this, I can spend it on that.
Yeah, and so then the 6-month saving is even greater. That if they're going to give you the $3.50. You're going to get $3.50 if you subscribe for 6 months, and that works out to $20.94 instead of $30. That is a savings of $9.06. And
that's good.
That's a half yard of fabric. And it just gets better from there. So I'm not going to talk about tier 2 and tier 3 1-month subscriptions because they are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine it's 20% off. What I want to talk to you about is the 3-month and 6-month subscriptions for both of those. So tier 2 is
the best deal
investment.
there is. It really is true because all the stuff you get with tier 2 and tier 3. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
It's a $10 investment. And but right now, September, they are giving the 3-month subscription at tier 2 away for $7.50. And essentially that saves you $7.50 over a 3-month subscription.
Yeah, it's good.
The 6-month subscription is going to save you $18. Tier 3, now again, I know this one is the $25 subscription at tier 3, and you know, we expect that not everybody can swing that because
sure.
$25 a month is something that for some folks, you know, and I mean, I know for me, that's tough, you know.
Of course. Yeah, totally. I'm in your pocket. Cake, I just put myself in your pocket.
Mary's in my little change pocket.
I support this information.
For the tier 3 subscription for 3 months, you end up saving $18.78, and for 6 months, you end up saving $45. So that to me, like when I looked at it that way and I said, okay, I know that maybe the $100 for the tier 3 6 months is out of the realm for some people, but if you look at what you would spend on a couple yards of fabric, and I'll be honest, you guys, I know a lot of us are into sustainability here, and I think what I was spending on fabric maybe a year ago, I'm just not there anymore. And so I have been saving some money on my quilting supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So experiences are things that are really hard to put a price on. And, you know, when I think about, it's more rewarding for me to have this experience here and other experiences that also come with tier 2 and tier 3 that, you know, I'd rather spend the money on the experience and the valuable information that Mary has to share versus another yard of fabric that I probably am just going to put in the cabinet and look at because it's pretty. So, you know, that is my, Yvonne is asking, you don't have to renew until February. Can you add 6 months now? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'll find out.
I think you can, Ivana. They make it so that if you upgrade or renew, like they want you to get the deal. So yeah, Kate will look it up. But I mean, and
I'll
look too. But thanks, thank you, Steph. Yeah. I mean,
so my long-winded math. My gosh, Mary, when you hired me, you never told me this job involved math.
Hired you, Steph? We're all.
Wait, you don't pay me, but you hired me. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
indeed I did. And you're in on the ground floor of an exciting opportunity, and you know that is true. But yes.
Well, but here's something I would tell you. Mary actually doesn't know this.
Oh God.
And it's a good thing. It's okay. It's okay. See, we have this thing that we talk about wrangling Mary.
Yes. Yes.
Mary sometimes has to wrangle us, but not really.
Oh no. The wrangling is one way in this
I promise
operation.
you don't have to wrangle me. Yeah. But what I am saying right now is, for those of you who will subscribe by the end of September to a 6-month subscription of either tier 2 or tier 3,
What?
you will get a special prize from Stephanie Cake.
What? Are you serious?
Make you a handmade thing. Now, understand, tier 2 is probably not going to be quite as expansive and great as tier 3, but I will make you something cool, and I make cool stuff.
Really?
Now, it's not going to be a quilt. It's not going to be a quilt. It's going to be like a really exciting quilt nerd related paper craft.
Really?
Of that nature.
Cake,
Yeah.
that is so cool. Everybody, if you haven't seen Stephanie Cake's creations, like, I mean, you made, wasn't it like a headphone cozy or something? You had some amazing thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then like a
Yeah.
fabric teacup or something. And I was like, that's so cool. And you're like, I made it. Like, I was like, ugh. Like she's very, some people are great at color. Some people are great at, drafting things. And some people are good at everything. I mean, you're really good. She's technically good design. That's amazing. That's so cool. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, and Cake said, I have talking points for tonight, for the cake break, like to let people know about September. I mean, nailed it. Like, that's great. Doing the math about like, hey, what do you spend your money on as a quilt maker? Like, if you really love this, if it's contributing to your life, like, we could very much use your support, Thanks.
So, and as I'm saying that, I would give to you guys, it is because I do truly love you guys. I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of you, and you're like my friends.
I know.
Even if I've never met you in person, I have met you online, and you're my friend. And if you support Mary in this way, I will absolutely send you something cool. And because I love to do stuff like that. So the point I'm trying to make here is, there are different ways to support the show. And like I said, I gave the spiel about my mom trying to hold back her money because she's gonna outlive me. I mean, that's just that's the way it is. She's gotta pay for like I don't know, the tuna and ramen she's gonna be eating until she's 120. But you can support the show without money if that is something that is just you just don't have it right now. And that is by telling other people.
Absolutely.
And, get them here and we'll do the rest. And, maybe because how many people, I talk to quilters all the time, but I'm thinking to myself, even though I put it out there, what I'm doing with Mary, I'm helping Mary out with this. Yeah. I'm wondering how many of them know about this. I got to do a better job with social media, but that's the point. This is something we can all do. It's just tell everybody about Quilt Nerd.
That would be good. And it's weird, like Mike at Quilt Folk, he's like, and I've experienced it too. And, just to say one other thing about it is like, my husband Eric met a quilter in the airport at one point a couple months ago. I think I told this, and he was like, oh yeah, she was quilting or she was sewing something or reading something, and he was like, oh, my wife's a quilt person, Mary Fons, you might know her name, and she was like, oh yeah, Fons and Porter, and he was like, Quilt Folk is, she's working with Quilt Folk for many years, and the woman was like, oh, I've never heard of it, and I was like, what? Really? Because you think everybody's heard of the stuff that you've heard of, right? But it's they haven't, because it's a big world, which is so cool. So tell somebody about Quilt Nerd. That'd be great. Cake, thank you so much.
I got a little long-winded there. I'm sorry, you guys, but I did have one other thing to talk about. Yeah. So
and then I'm gonna put this.
We mentioned this before. Mary mentioned this the other day. We are gonna do that watch party.
Oh yeah.
Sunday.
Let's
talk about some stuff, guys.
Yes.
Know sometimes there's frustrations here because I know Twitch is so weird and doesn't work the right way sometimes. So let me give you all the details, and you decide if it's something that you want to do and you want to come to. We're looking at it as it's going to be fun. It's going to be like a brunch thing, but it's not going to be content. It's going to be this movie, and we're just going to be hanging out and kind of trying some stuff. So be prepared for it to be crazy and a total crack up. but you have to be an Amazon Prime subscriber.
Okay, sorry, I'm
And
like
here's what's
screwing
gonna
up the
happen.
background. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
So 10 a.m. Central Time on the 18th, which is this coming Sunday, we will be watching a movie. We'll be doing a watch party, which is what Twitch calls it, for the movie called The Booksellers. It's The Booksellers.
The Booksellers.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what it is, it's because Amazon owns Twitch, they're doing this thing. So Mary's going to be able to start the show and stream that movie. You will not be able to get in if you don't have Prime.
It's a Prime thing. Mm-hmm.
Again, we apologize for that, but that is just the way it is. And I can say, if you can't make it and you don't have Prime, it's not the end of the world, because you're not missing out on quilt nerd content.
It's true.
We are watching this movie and being silly.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, and we're bringing our brunchy cocktails, and that's the gist.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all you have to do is come to Twitch, search for Quilt Nerd Show on Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time, which for those of us on the East Coast is 11 a.m. For those of you on the West Coast, it's going to be 8 a.m. Is that right? Am I doing the math right? I'm terrible with the time zones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. A good question.
Yay.
SJ Pepper just asked about watching on a tablet. If you have the Twitch app, you can watch on a device. If it's a device that doesn't have the Twitch app, I'm trying to think. I would assume like an Amazon Kindle would have the Twitch app, right? Because it's Amazon. I don't know. I don't know about an iPad. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
They recommend laptops, obviously, because Twitch is very laptop centric, or computer centric. But if you can get the app on a device, you should be able to watch.
Mm-hmm. And
so that's 10 a.m. Central Time, September 18th.
So it's exciting because this week, there's a show on Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central, so our friends across the pond and around the world can tune in. And I love a morning show. I do love a morning show. I mean, I got here at 5:30 in the morning, 5:45 in the morning, so I love it. I love the morning. And also we've got Friday morning, Saturday night show, and then a Sunday brunch. Come for what you can come for. I'll be here for everything. So if you come for everything, like me and Stephanie Cake, you're in good company. We're here every show. We love it when you're here every show too. And by the way, the one thing to note is that the watch parties, I don't stop the movie. I can't. That's something that Cake talked to me about. It's not commentary. It's not like that. It's a watch party. So it's not like I'm stopping every 3 minutes to talk about it or whatever. So we talk in the chat. The movie plays. If I stop, the movie or whatever, I'm just muting it basically and talking to you. And you're missing the movie, and so am I. So it's not like a normal video that we would watch. And we're going to watch a little video here in just a second, just a little bit to sort of round out the show and give you a preview of something we're going to do more of later. But it's different. So we watch the movie together, and I'm going to have, because I can't really pause, I'm going to have signs to hold up that say hate it, love it, sad face, happy face, crack up, So I'll just hold up those signs. But it should be really fun. It'll be our first time doing it. I think it's going to be great. The booksellers, they're nerds for books. We're nerds for quilts. It's going to be good. Yes, and the chat will be up. Yes, so Mother Nature, the chat will be up in the watch party. Yes, oh yes, definitely. I'm up in the corner, the chat's below me, the screen. It'll be good. It's the first time for everybody, but it's something that's that Twitch does. You can't do it on YouTube. You can't do it on Facebook. It'll just stream to Twitch that day. So yeah. Oh my God, there's so many announcements. Let's what do you, Cake, do you feel good? Yeah?
I think I covered it all.
Excellent.
That's what I do. I invented Post-its.
So we're getting to that time. We usually go till about 9. Sometimes we go over. But this week there's so much extra content. I don't want to keep you all too late. Because we have so much stuff to talk about. But I want to show you a few minutes at least of a film. I mean, it's almost a film strip. It's from 1976. It's from 1976, and I love I love anything that's put to video in like the last quarter of the 20th century, in the 1970s. So it's just movies in the 1970s, great. But like, let me show you what I found. I found this on archive.org, which, you know, is a great resource. It's very strange. It's a little bit like Wikipedia Commons in that, like, you never know what you're going to get when people have access to upload things, you know, to a public domain, free to use sort of database. So there's a lot of books on archive.org. We've talked about that. We've used archive.org on Quilt Nerd before. They do have some video there. And what's interesting is, just like Wikipedia Commons, where I look for images a lot of the time, it's like, it's the quilt rabbit hole, you guys. Like, when you look for one thing, you'll find, I mean, you can look for like crazy quilts, let's just call it that. But one of the things that I've got for content this week that I had tonight prepared just in case is about the Mikado quilt, as in like Gilbert and Sullivan's Mikado, the Mikado, which is like totally weird. I'm really glad tonight we didn't get to it because I need to learn a little bit more, because it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of problematic, right? Like, anyway, it's about Japan, but like, anyway, it's weird. Anyway, so the Mikado quilt is something there's a Mikado quilt in the Met, and I was going to talk about it. But like, if you look for, you know, the Mikado, or you look for crazy quilts, Japan, like, you start to find things you never expected to find. And so this video came up when I was looking for something else in archive.org. And if I had searched for quilt videos or quilt documentaries or videos made in 1970s, I might not have found it, because algorithms are not perfect, keywords are not perfect, metadata is not perfect. So you have to enter the rabbit hole of the quilt nerdery universe, and you have to stick around, because you never know what's going to happen. So this video is 27 minutes. We're definitely not watching it all tonight, but I want to start it, and I want to take your temperature on whether you want to see all of it at some point. I'd love it. I want to see what happens. It was made in 1976, and from the first moments of this video, S.J. Pepper, I've been ignoring you. Not on purpose. I guess ignoring is on purpose. I've been neglecting you, dear. Neglecting you. Where do you live? Don't tell me in the chat. I don't want to dox you, but I want you to come visit. Anyway, I want everybody to come visit. Scrap tub, not scrap tub. What are you saying? Okay, let's get on with things. What is this gonna do? What is it gonna bring us, this film? Let's find out. I'm gonna eat chips. I'm really hungry. Okay. That's the video. That's not my sound, so I love it already. Okay. Quilting women. Mother Nature agreed. Suggestion that this song goes into the playlist. See, I miss like just being in the chat all the time. I can't be all the time, but S.J. Pepper sounds like this song should go into the playlist. Burrito, what is happening? It's an old tape, man. It's an old tape of a video cassette of a thing. And it's a little warbly. I don't think it remains this way. I skipped around to make sure it was, you know, they weren't like showing nudes or anything. They're not. Definitely not. But it seems that the warbly works itself out. But anyway, I paused because this is a production of Apple Shop, as in like Appalachia, right? Apple Shop Incorporated, Whitesburg, Kentucky. And you know, anybody want to do like a quilt research paper or some sort of investigation into quilts in Appalachia? The word that I can never say. This is interesting. Copyright 1976. I was not yet on the planet. How weird is that? Where was I? We don't know. Maybe when I die, it won't be that bad. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know where I was before. Maybe it'll be fine. Okay. Oh, God. Berea College, interesting. Thank you, my great cat. Oh, I like that block. Ooh. That's pretty rough, guys. Ooh. Oh, okay. I need that to stop. Are we good? I'm lowering the volume. Woo! The visuals are nice. Oh, that's rough. I'm lowering. I can't. Clog dancing. You guys are ridiculous. Dulcimer. Yes, Bridgewater. Beautiful Storm at Sea. Love it. Oh, here.
They came over, they brought these
Look at that image. Oh my God.
patterns with them. And there's a lot of Indians, you know, that had patterns. But the most of them was brought in here with them when they came here. They came here.
What did she say?
But with them. And there's a lot of Indians, you know, that had patterns.
It's true. This is, well, yes. I mean, we know the Native American quilting traditions in this country. It is amazing. They incorporated their own, you know, indigenous designs, the Lone Star being one of them, into the quilts that they were forced to learn how to make, right? Fascinating. So here she says it, right? But what else does she say?
But the most of them was brought in here with them when they came here. They came here.
Most brought them here when they came here, something like that.
Our first settlers had to be so careful to use all their material that they had, you know, because they didn't have any way of, when they first got here, they didn't have any way hardly to get material, and they wanted to save every little scrap, and they put the scraps all together, and that's where the crazy quilt got started.
Everything she said is wrong. It's totally okay. Crazy Quilt was Victorian era. It's totally fine. Whatever. We love her anyway.
She spent more time inside. Well, I guess she had plenty to do.
I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying, like, whatever. It's the myth that everybody tells. It's totally fine, but whatever. We're nerds, okay?
Of course that is, but it was her duty then to keep the bedclothes and to keep the house going. That's the reason a man wasn't involved in it, probably, because it was a woman's work. A lot of patterns were originated from things that were inside the cabin, like churn dasher, and looking out the window. Mountains, a lot of patterns had mountains and stars. Firepaw, Fox and the Geese, or the log cabin. Now that was probably one of the oldest ones, I'd say. It does. You just put it together like you'd lay up the logs to a cabin. You just keep going around and around. Just about every day something reminded, and that's where art really come in, I think, because it reminded her, it inspired her to go ahead and make a pattern. Well, we can see that in some of the dyes they use and the brilliant colors that they come up with on their own. They just experiment more or less with it. And they're still used today, but they're getting more modern as time goes by. I redo every one I get a hold of. I put my own touches to it, and that's the reason they keep improving them, or I don't know if it's improving or what.
Sorry.
I just tried to get as many different patterns of quilts in it that I could.
By the way, a lot of those images are from the Library of Congress that you just saw. I noticed them.
Good. And of course I got enough patterns I could piece 2 or 3. This is a flower garden, and this is a flying cloud. And let's see, this is a primrose.
And these are all pretty old patterns.
Most of them, this one right here is a fan. And the star is a blazing star, they call it. And there's 108 pieces in that one block.
Woo.
And this book is in a blazing star, and there's 108 pieces. Well, I saw a picture in a magazine that really gave me the idea, and they had put the different patterns, but they had made more of just rows of different patterns, and I decided, well, it'd be prettier just to have them all different instead of having so many of them the same pattern. But they had used several different patterns. And this was a lot of fun because different people began sending me patterns, and then it wasn't boring because each one was different.
Right. Exactly.
How many stitches did you say
in an inch. Well, to be a real good quilter, you're supposed to get 16 to an inch. And I have tried, and sometimes I have gotten 14, but usually around 12. Because that's hard to do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. He's like, good.
They're better than I am.
Quilt police. Quilt police.
It was real.
What did she call that? Clouds in the sky or something? She called one of those blocks Clouds in the Sky or something. I almost stopped it, but I'm trying not to do that too much. Never heard of it before. I mean, I think it was half square triangles. I swear. I'll go back to it, but it was so interesting. I mean, you just never, people name them, you know, if this woman grew up in a family where somebody who taught her to quilt said that was the name of the block, that's what she knows it as. But I mean, it was like Clouds in the Sky or heaven, clouds in the heaven.
You ever say flying cloud?
Yeah, flying cloud, yeah. And I've never even heard it once. It's beautiful, right? Flying cloud, yeah.
Oh, fun.
That's right, Robin.
But I really did intend, I wanted just to get the oldest patterns.
I want S.J. Pepper's voice to sound like this, like with this accent. I'm just saying.
But first thing you know, I got more than one.
What are some of the oldest?
Well, the fan is real old, and the bear track, and the flower garden. And I don't know, I have several of the older ones, but not as many as I would have liked to have, because these are more modern.
Ha! That's funny.
Are, and I'd rather had the old timey.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that interests me about quilts the most is the time involved.
No, time. You don't get the time. But I have to have something to do.
Same.
If you do just a block a day, and that's about what I usually get done after supper, that I do a block. First thing you know, you've got a quilt.
I love this. Wow.
Making quilts, you get to use up your scraps, I guess. I have finished scraps because I sew, and I use scraps mostly, but this one I wanted certain colors. So.
Wow. That is a beehive hairdo, correct? Right? I mean that is really.
Scraps, I guess. I have.
That is really, it's fascinating, right? How things change.
I finished scraps because I sew, and I use scraps mostly, but this one I wanted certain colors. So.
It's before the quilt industry, 76. I mean, it's just starting. It's just starting, really. Oh, did you see that? Did you see that? That's Mountain Mist. Look. Watch. The banjo's terrible. I'm cutting it out. Watch, there's a batting wrapper right there. That's Mountain Mist. Mountain Mist batting. Been going since the 18 something. I just looked at it. They printed patterns on the wrapper of the batting rolls, and people still buy Mountain Mist for that reason. I'm going to see what year. It's right over
And
there.
there's a great book about those quilts too.
That's right. Oh.
Yeah, those patterns.
Yes, that's right. Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad, that banjo. Can you? I'm sure is there a link for this one? Is there an affiliate link? Okay, this is great.
I'll look for it.
This is great. By my dear friend Linda Pumphrey, who I know watches this show from time to time.
Precise. Get it to fit.
Sorry.
Now it's really. The cutting out is really the hardest part for me.
Cutting
you
out.
have to be so precise to get it to fit.
Cut 2 or 3 at a time, it's not fair. But if you have to mark them, cut one piece at a time. That really didn't work. It does.
That's the way I have to cut now.
When people first settled in here, why they were such beautiful people, you know. Why they'd have to go help each other, cut their logs and raise their house. They call it log raising. And they'd take their axe and go help each other. And That's why this is called Always Friends, because it was friends of helping friends.
Sorry. It's called Friends because it was helping friends? I have to hear it again. Y'all, I don't know. I really like this video. I want to kind of keep watching it. If you got to cut out, I understand, but like, it's really good.
Such beautiful people, you know. Why, they'd have to go help each other, cut their logs and raise their house. They call it log raising. And they'd take their axe and go help each other. And that's why this is called Always Friends, because it was friends of helping friends.
That's why this is called Always Friends, because it was friends helping friends. That's what she said. I looked to see if I could put closed caption, but it's not offered. That's what she said. It's called Always Friends because it was friends helping friends. I've never heard that before. This is what she knows that pattern to be. Fascinating and amazing. Yeah, I agree, Padma. I think it is what that looks like.
Do you like spending your time piecing?
Well, you have to spend it some way, honey. You get up our age, there's not much you can do. In the wintertime, especially. All just look at quilts or read or something, and you can't just read all the time. And piecing quilts, you know, it's sort of creative. I don't even like it. You used to doing it, you get up in the morning, you think, well, I would have to have something to be doing. Materials about so high anymore, it makes it kind of hard, you know. You don't have any pieces to work with.
Do all the pieces by hand?
Yes. This is the center of the star. And so these in it makes the points of the star. Finishes the star out. I like to work early in the mornings. It's the quietest, best time of day to quilt. Work at anything else, I go to bed early in the afternoon. I don't quilt at night, so I can't see the quilt at night so much. It's not wasted time. It's enjoyable work.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do it.
It's not wasted
So
time.
winter when you can't do anything else.
It's not wasted time. It's enjoyable work.
You feel like you've accomplished something when you get one done. It's pretty and something you can use too. There's satisfaction in sitting quilting. You can think while you quilt, or talk to company and things. Quilt right on.
Talk to company.
It takes patience. As you get older, you learn patience.
Oh, yeah.
They called it the Whig Rose. I have seen it, the pattern, under some other names, but this was what Aunt Sarah called it. I think it's a very good example of the kind of things they did, and it's a very large quilt. Shows that it was probably made for a big old four-poster of some kind. I'm sure that it...
Wow. That's really big. That woman is a tiny human being, and that quilt is huge. Oh my God. It's like it's eating her. Okay.
150 years old. It could be older. And it was one made by a great aunt of my grandfather. I think the thread, the story of the thread that came to us from her, it was made on the farm in Virginia from their own cotton.
Wow. The thread.
And, of course, the calicos were out. But I don't know about the muslin. It's fairly finely woven. And the life of it is due to such close quilting.
Huh. Oh, that's interesting. The life of it is due to such close quilting. Huh. I never thought about that. That if there's really tight or just really fine quilting, would a quilt last longer? Let me think. I mean, because we can't take just because this is an old film and people are old and they're saying things, it doesn't mean that they're right. But I've never heard that before. Like, I mean, you could argue that it would break apart the batting more, though. That it would separate, that it would cut, essentially, into the...
Well, but so the batting they were using on really old quilts was not batting. It was...
Right.
The cotton and, however they carded it and made it.
Yeah.
It actually, I think, closer together, quilting was actually better for that kind, because it did bunch when you washed it.
Right.
So the closer together the quilting was, the better. But as far as them wearing out, it's funny. I don't know if anybody out there's heard the old thing about, I guess, how you put on your binding, and I don't know, something about the binding lasting longer if it's put on a certain way or whatever.
Oh, really?
So that the thread doesn't break. And I'm like, yeah, I've never had the thread break in a binding. My husband's beard sawed the binding off of one of our quilts, but...
Cake, do you know about beard guards and whisker guards? They're called whisker guards. Honey, they are on quilts from the past, whisker guards, to keep the... I've never actually... You know what? I was always like, is that true? Now I know from you and your whiskery husband that's true. That's insane.
My husband, and it was a quilt that my grandmother had. I think she and her sister made it for our wedding. It was a wedding gift, and it was out of cheater's cloth, so it was a pieced, but they did hand quilt it, and it's a beautiful quilt. But yes, my husband, I guess the edges of it were not. I don't know. He has this beard. He's had this beard forever, and it sawed the binding off.
Unreal. If Eric ever does that, I'm going to take him to task. Interesting about this close quilting thing.
I lay mine off before I start quilting.
We're just going to watch this. Is that okay with you, Cake? Can we just watch this?
As you go, make it in different
It's about half over.
patterns, scrolls and straight lines and all. You have to have something to follow. I try to make my marks real light. I don't blur down like some people like heavy marks, I don't want to do that. Because it stays there. If you don't wash a quilt, and you don't want to wash them very often.
You don't wash it and you don't want to wash them. Interesting.
My grandmother had a quilt, usually, up in her living room. The frames were homemade, holes bored in them and pegs to go down, so you could extend it out, and then you could take it loose and roll it up. And they were suspended from the ceiling.
Right?
But they wound the quilts up at night. They quilted early in the morning.
Look at that now. They've got that hanging. I haven't seen this. I haven't seen a video of this. They've got the quilt frame on pulleys up in the ceiling of the house, and they lower it to do the quilting. I haven't actually seen a video of this.
I've always heard about it.
Right?
Always heard about it, but I've never seen it. And I know it's something that they did, both sets of my grandparents were from the South or in Appalachia also. But yeah, I always heard about this and I've seen pictures, but I've never been in a house where this happened.
Me neither.
It happened.
Me neither. And you can tell because it's moving, right? It's moving, and they're prepping the quilt for quilting.
Mother had a quilt, usually, up in her living room.
It is smart.
The frames were homemade, holes bored in them and pegs to go down, so you could extend it out, and then you could take it loose and roll it up.
Wow.
And they were suspended from the ceiling. But they wound the quilts up at night. They quilted early in the mornings. As soon as they got ready with the housework, and in the winter when they weren't working in gardens and canning and drying foods, they quilted a lot, as they did with their looms. They wove,
Look at
that.
that.
But the quilts were always on a quilting frame that they could make smaller as they went along. The quilt was stretched the length of it and the size.
Oh, I didn't know that either. Sure, of course. How do you how do you miss this stuff? How do I miss it? I guess because I don't pore over every single word of every single book because I'm looking for... Anyway, the frame would shrink as you quilted, right? Because you had these 4 boards, 4 like 2x4s or something, whatever, for the frame, and so it could shrink as needed to get things. because like the middle of the quilt would be hard to reach, so you could like, is that what she's saying?
Right, you could, I guess. That's the thing. I don't quite understand how these are put together. Like, I don't know if they're put together like temporarily. I do know that like on big floor frames, I mean, because my mom and my grandmother had them, you know, you can make them smaller, bigger. You can roll the quilt and all that. So I don't know, maybe it's the same concept.
You know what? Joe Cunningham, I just shared this with somebody who was asking. Joe Cunningham has 2 really good videos about old school quilting frames. We'll watch them on the next show. Promise.
Parts were parts that they rolled, and when they got so much quilted, they rolled it up.
Man wants beauty around him from the beginning of time. He's always wanted to surround himself with beauty, and that he'll make it some way or another if he's got just earth to work with, I guess. Look what we have today to work with. It makes a quilt much easier to do than what they had to work with. So
Wow.
I call them artists.
Wait.
What they had to work with. So I'd call them artists.
I'd call them artists. Love it.
See, there wasn't anything in moving fast back then. Everybody went at just a slow pace. If you got anywhere, you had to walk or ride a mule. Now it's jet planes.
Everybody had to walk or ride a mule. Now there's jet planes.
Everybody is just moving faster. And they didn't think anything about it. It just came natural to be patient.
Look at her. Look at her. Look at her go. Look at that. Sorry, look at her hands. If I could zoom in, I would. Look at her, how quickly she's going here.
Had to walk or ride a mule. Now it's jet planes. See, everything is just moving faster. And they didn't think anything about it. It just came natural to be patient.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She took 5. She did it, and then pulled. I'm literally at 2. It's really interesting. She took 5 and then pulled through.
That rocking stitch is amazing. And I know that like hand quilters, like that's a big deal, is learning how to do that.
I gotta see it again.
I mean, these ladies probably did a lot of stuff with their hands. They probably had no feeling in their fingers from like washing dishes and.
I mean, really. We're like, I'm a typist, you know, or whatever. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I can't do that.
It's beautiful. I want to see it again.
Ride a mule. Now it's jet planes. See, everything is just moving faster. And they didn't think anything about it. It just came natural to be patient.
6, I think 6.
I read somewhere where in a book where it said that like quilting together, working together, makes you closer, you know, to something like brothers and sisters being raised up together, neighbors working together while they get closer to each other.
Did you ever see a man quilt? They do. I saw a man's quilt that he had quilted at the class we had at college. And he did a pretty fair job. And I think this man was disabled. He'd made a lot of quilts.
Wow.
It's women, isn't it? Yeah. Why do you think that is? Well, it started out that way, I guess. And men, you know, they kind of...
Well, I don't guess too many men's interested in it.
They're not that patient either.
Yeah.
I never had thought about it.
Wow.
I can't imagine my husband sitting down making a quilt.
This is my favorite thing we've ever watched video-wise. This is amazing. This is like, do a close read on this one. This is unreal.
Boys, they've always been taught that that's something the women did. I guess that grows up with you. Girls are expected to sew and the boys to get out and work. You got that thing? Yeah, I know it is.
Sorry, I want to hear what she asked. Hold on.
Yeah, I know it is. We have women going in the coal mines right around here.
That's right.
Wintertime, we don't ever do it in summertime. No. We got too much garden and things like that in summertime. It's just a wintertime job. I heard Uncle Felix say, Minnie's first husband, said, that's the craziest thing I ever heard of. Buy new material, sit down and cut out little pieces to sew it back together to make them fit.
We've been saying that for generations, right?
Yes, ma'am. Somebody need to ride in? Who does?
Yes.
I'm coming here, too. I'll come down there, too.
Oh, you didn't have anything for entertainment, no radios, no TVs, not anything.
I don't cook for other people. And it takes you at least 2 weeks.
Okay. So here, because I've wondered about how they marked the quilt, and how they, because you can pounce a thing, and you could pounce a thing for a long time, right? You could have your quilting pattern, on paper, punch holes in it, with a, whatever it is, and all, an AWL all, and pounce it with whatever, but you don't want graphite on a quilt. So like, and I know there's all kinds of things we can read about, like how people marked quilts in the olden days, but like, is that what we're looking at right now? I mean, they're working on white portions of fabric, but like,
I don't cook for other people.
what is, so they've drawn on it. That's them, they've drawn on it. Okay, the quilting design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have lots of quilts that have been clearly marked with pencil.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care. Yeah, they're like, you'll wash it eventually. Yeah, okay, cool. Or it'll just brush off. And okay, cool. I didn't know if I was looking at paper, but it's the quilt. Okay, great.
At least 2 weeks in any kind. But the large one, it takes 3 weeks to a month. You built like that. She was a robbery before she married. I don't know who she married. But I've seen her.
She's that in that little skinny.
Come in. I thought you were going somewhere else. Have y'all done all that this morning? No. I'm going to. Well, sure, we got an early start. I know you might be smart, but you aren't that smart now. No, there's one. We're going to take over. We got something to take. We can get this one out. I have to tell you. It's all curly. Hey, are you up here by, let's see, vacation? Almost there.
I want my children, I have a daughter who quit better than I do. I've got some granddaughters married. I won't let myself look ahead that way. I just sit down and enjoy quilting.
Here's a question. No, we're not going to go back and count, but if you watch this again, which I highly recommend you do, because every frame is fascinating, and there's people saying things that are profound in many different ways, from many different angles. Anyway, how many people have been quilting on this quilt? There was the woman setting it up, and from the time she set it up, there were people stitching on it, and then I see new people. I see people that I didn't see before. I mean, when we talk about a quilting bee, it's so interesting. This is fascinating. This film, 5 stars, 2 thumbs up. Because when we think about a quilting bee, and when I've thought about it, I mean, this is, oh my God, like I have never, ever in my life, when I was on that TV show, when I was doing a magazine, whatever, I've never said I knew anything, because I don't know anything. And that's why I like doing this show with you, because I figure things out, or at least I think I do. When I've thought about a quilting bee, I literally, all of this time, and I have the audacity to host a show about quilting, but like I've thought about a quilting bee as like, and there's reasons for this, ladies coming for the afternoon and doing the quilting. And there's reasons for this. There's literature that talks about the quilting parties and stuff like that. But like what this looks like to me is like an open house where it's like, hey, Mary's got the quilt to get done, so stop by on Sunday if you can and like hang out. Like it's a barbecue or something. I'm telling you, nobody's like, we've arrived for the quilting. And maybe that's what it was, but it doesn't look like that to me. It looks like people are sitting down when there's a free seat.
Yeah, and my mom actually was, I think she's still here. She was talking the other day about, being little and not really paying attention to this kind of stuff, but it happens.
Right.
And it was kind of like, it stays set up. It's like you come and go. This is how they get a quilt done quickly, because there are a million hands working on it, and you can see what I love is you can see the evidence in the quilts, because like some people have this really meticulous, and then there's like, don't let Evelyn in here. She makes those toenail catcher stitches.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, Evelyn, why don't you go and fill up the juice bowl? You know, we really need somebody to play piano, Evelyn. But it's fascinating, because this seems like, to be honest, like way more fun. Like, oh yeah, we got a quilting going on Sunday. Got to get that wedding quilt done for, you know, Elizabeth, you know, or Elizabeth, or, you know, whoever, whatever. And it's just great. It's like super chill. And you know, listen, everybody was drinking. Come on now. What do you think? They were all teetotaling? Come on, it was the 70s, you know? Somebody's got some sherry. What did they drink in the 70s?
Some Budweiser.
Some Budweiser. My favorite cocktails. I was like, I ought to have a cocktail that I like order, you know, that's like my drink. A sidecar. I Googled, I was like, what cocktails did they drink in the 1970s? It was like, Mai Tais. I'm like, I'm not doing that. This is when I was single and I was going out on a lot of dates.
Oh,
and
whiskey sour.
Whiskey sour.
Sure, whiskey sour. Always order that.
I went with the sidecar, and it's stood me in good stead. Anyway, but yeah, they're drinking. Grab a beer out of the kitchen. You know, Edna, sit down. Okay, here we go. It's fascinating.
You haven't been dreaming.
Wishing star. Wishing star.
Yeah. Tom Collins, Amaretto Sour Rock Dog. You're speaking my language. Those curtains I'm living for.
That's what takes the extra footwork.
That's the only way I can have one of these, is to do it by hand.
Three things told me is punch that needle up and down.
Is that a newspaper? What is that? What is that down there? That's a newspaper. I don't know if someone's reading it, where it is. I don't know. But there's a newspaper there.
Well, you get the hang of it. That's the way I used to. Right down I go, you know, and I get under it and I stick it back up. And that's how.
I remember the first time I ever quilted good was at my aunt, right up here, up the creek, and quilted at her quilt. That's where I learned. But our mother used to let us, when we were just little, if she had a quilt up she wasn't very particular with, she'd let us all put in a few stitches.
So many people.
Now I can tell mine because I've got red fingernail polish.
That's also a mirror, but there are still so many people there.
Well, I tell mine because I've got tape in mine. Oh, well, I mean, I don't guess yours is dirty as mine.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Oh, here's our sad banjo. Oh. Why does the banjo sound so bad on this recording?
I don't know. Usually this kind of music doesn't sound that bad.
This music always sounds amazing, right? Like, even if it's bad, it's pretty good. It's the recording. There's something about the tape they use to overlay, because they're overlaying the sound, right, from the tape. It's that. But you know what? This film is so well done. I mean, these hands quilting, these close-ups, it's great. It's great. Actually, wait. Here's another example of a hand taking stitches before she pulls through. It's just so good. I'm just gonna go back, and we'll just mute it and play it. So that's a very simple quilt, right? That they're quilting. Again, on a frame, you can see the pulleys. Look over here. There it is. Like, that's what they pull up. And because you see it's that long beam, so you could shorten it. We're gonna look at that. We gotta totally look at stuff. You know, if you know any woodworkers or any if you know woodworkers, like, get them to make a video on a quilting frame, like building one from scratch. Quilt folk should do that. Mike's brother is a woodworker. They're selling beautiful quilting ladders, by the way.
Oh yeah, those ladders.
Oh my, those have done very well, by the way. Beautiful quilt ladders sold by Mike's brother, who's making them by hand. They're fabulous. Okay.
And just to note, if you can afford a quilt ladder, you can afford a subscription to Quilt Nerd.
You know what I would say to that? I would say that. I would agree. Okay, let's see what they. So let's see her hands do this. Okay. It's that rock stitch. I just look at her. It's so fine. It's like, I don't know how many stitches she took, but it's like, it's amazing. It's amazing. I don't know. You have to do it for so long to learn it, or learn it from the time you were a child, but like, I can't do that. I mean, are you kidding? And you look at the stitches on these quilts and you're like, well, yeah. I mean, 12 to 14 to 16 stitches an inch, that is such fine work with your hands, but like, it's they don't pull it through until they have X number put in. It's crazy to me. I don't know how to do it. I'll just let it play. And a bee, by the way, a bee is anything that people would do together that would be helpful to get something done more quickly. For example, a barn bee or a candle wicking bee. It was not just a quilting bee, it was a bee. It was like, people working together in a group to get something done more quickly. And when you're living out on the frontier or whatever, this was a good strategy, right? So look at all these hands. Many hands make light work. I mean, that's where this comes from, right? Look at all these people working on one quilt. You get it done in a day.
Everybody, that was a bigger thing than what.
There's 7 minutes left. I'm so glad. I mean, this is like my favorite movie we've ever watched, or my favorite media. I swear, I didn't have any idea how good it was.
And when they had a quilting, people would come from everywhere around, and have good times and a big dinner. We didn't have many social gatherings back then. Church was about it. Box suppers at school or something like that, but have a quilting, that was a big school.
Sorry. This is research. Sorry. Listen to what she says.
Had a good time, just like we're doing today. Everybody, that was a bigger thing than it was now because people didn't get together. And when they had
people didn't get together, and when they had
quilting, people would come from everywhere around,
And when they had a quilting, people would come from everywhere around,
And have good times and a big dinner.
And have good times and a big dinner. And she says people didn't get together except for church.
We didn't have many social gatherings back then. Church was about it. Box suppers at school or something like that, but have a quilting, that was a big day. Well, of course, they just have it in
Having a quilting, that was a good day.
communities now. We like to have it here on this creek. The neighbors on this creek, or maybe some over town would come walk across the hill down here to come.
People would come from across the hill. Padma, thanks for noting that. Stopping, it's important, I think, in this case, because I can hear the original media right here on my computer, and I figure, I can translate a little bit, and I think it's worth it, because everyone else is listening one device removed, you know what I mean?
Well, when you think about it, they go buy blankets that are warm. If we, older people, made quilts to keep them warm, they had to. And now you had to have 4 or 5 quilts. And now they could buy blankets. I guess it may be not very sensible to quilt, spend all
Now they can buy blankets, and it's not very sensible to have a quilt.
that time unless you really like to.
Why spend that amount of time if, unless you really want, unless you really like to. Okay.
I like to.
And I like to.
It's a waste of time or anything.
I'm thinking
You see? Look, it's smaller. It's smaller. Look, they shrunk it all the way down. It's tiny now to get at the center, I guess. Maybe? I don't know. But they collapsed the frame. It's still on the frame, but they collapsed. Well, I don't know. Okay, but anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah, keeps you from going.
Yeah, I get it.
It's done.
People
It's
say,
done.
"Oh,
That I bored you.
I hate to hear people say I'm bored. I'd like to give them some quilt pieces.
Nothing to do with the time.
See, right there, I think so many people is beginning to realize the value of things. Now, it takes a long time to make a quilt, and everything is flying anymore. Even time seems to be rushing by. See, there's nobody won't take time to sit down. Quilt.
Y'all, we know that quilt. That is from that design house in Des Moines, Iowa. I can find it. That was my phone telling me that it's time to wind down for bed. Oops. We know that. I can find it right now, but I won't. We'll talk about it later. But listen to what this woman says. They finished it, by the way. They finished the whole quilt that day because
I'd like to give them some quilt pieces.
they were all working.
Nothing to do with the time.
See, right there, I think so many people is beginning to realize the value of things. Now, it takes a long time to make a quilt, and everything is flying anymore. Even time seems to be rushing by. See, there's nobody won't take time to sit down. Quilt.
Wow. It's a popular pattern. Wow. Oh, it's too bad their soundtrack tape didn't make it. It's wonderful. You know I don't do it too often, but I gotta say it. Go ahead, cut them up, make a dog collar, whatever. I'm sorry. I don't go there very often because I said what I had to say, but like, really? That's all. I'm done now. That's great. Look at that one. Oof. Ah! Oh. Raffle, I see you. I love that comment. Yeah, I gotta take the banjo completely out. Sorry, it's like some creepy horror movie. This is wonderful footage. It's really great. That's great. That's a nice pattern. I like that pattern. You know, that four diamond. That's nice. I always like a quilt when I see that used. I love it. Robin, I couldn't agree more. I am obsessed with this. Ooh, what was that? This is some of the best video I've ever seen in quilt culture I've ever seen. And look at this. Look, they're at an exhibit. So this is 1976, so this is bicentennial time, as pointed out by someone now I can't remember because I'm getting tired, but yeah, remind me, if you're still in the chat, remind me who you were. You're like, it's about that time everyone was interested in quilting. I'm like, oh yeah, the bicentennial, it's 1976. I completely missed that. I was like, oh, 1976 is an early film. Yeah, it's the bicentennial. Somebody made this film. But look, that's a quilt exhibit. You know, the Whitney exhibit had happened in 71, so by this point, there are quilt shows, you know, that's not a state fair. That's not a county fair. That's a quilt on, you know, in a gallery, right? Some kind of gallery. Anyway, there's what 2 minutes left. I love it. It's so good. I'm so grateful right now. That's really interesting. That's a spider web, but really, really altered. Very cool. Yeah, that's paper pieced spider web with a very specific stripe.
That
Yeah.
was Texas Farm Gal that reminded you.
Thank you, Texas Farm Gal. You know what?
That's what I do. I invented Post-its.
Yeah, that's for you. That, hell yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm embarrassed, but I'm grateful. Okay, yeah. White work. Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh my God, trip around the world in a fabulous colorway. Love it. Courthouse steps, love it. Oh, yeah, no. Ooh, here we go. Thanks to these women. Wishing Star Quilt. Oh, this is the credits. Yeah, Luama Banks made the Wishing Star Quilt. Burdette made the sampler. Okay, great. Well, they're giving them each credit for every single quilt. And look, Laura Springen called her quilt Always Friends, the Always Friends quilt, which I have always known as an apple core quilt. You remember the one that she said that I've always known it as an apple core? She called it Always Friends. I love that. I love it. Make a Always Friends quilt. It's an apple core pattern, as most of you will know it, but call it something else. Call it what Burdette called it, or what Laura called it. Yeah, it's going to be terrible banjo to the end, so we can just watch this. Damn. Thank you, archive.org. So good. Wow. It's folk culture, you guys. It's just anthropology, it's sociology, like whatever ology you're into, like quilts are a really good way in, because that was so cool. Look, all those people at the Quilting Bee. Bam. Did they have other names? Oh, no. Okay, check it out. Bang. It wasn't like 5 women gossiping around a quilt frame. It was friggin' 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 people coming through being like, yo, I got an hour, then we gotta go get my son some clothes for school. He's driving me insane. Okay, where do I sit? You know? 6 name banks. Interesting. Good call. And they all, SJ, I'm so glad to see you. That you're still here, that you're going, that you're in for the long haul. And they all brought a casserole. You bet your buttons they did.
That's the way it works. You're all related to each other.
And yes.
And you bring a dish.
You bring a hot dish. And you also bring, if you're in Iowa, you bring some bars. You bring some bars. So maybe some some Rice Krispie treats, or some chocolate bars, or brownie, or blondies, or some kind of bar. You bring a bar. That was, look. This film is one of a series made possible. Hey. Oh, look. You know what? Here. This is what matters. This is my only soapbox for the night, okay? National Endowment for the Arts, people. You gotta support your public television. You gotta support that. It's important. They got a grant from the government, basically, to make this. It's like, gee, was that worth it? Yeah, it was. America, we should, take note of the things that are happening in the homes of our people, right? Anyway, hell yes. You know what? We haven't gone late in a while. I'm so glad we did tonight. I did not think that we were going to watch that whole thing, because the first portion of the show was, it was a significant, we spent some time on the quilts of 9/11 and just patriotic quilts that, were meaningful, right? But I started watching that thing with y'all, and I was like, I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was impossible to stop. Cake, are you even feeling tired? Okay, I am. But that was good. That was a half an hour.
It really was.
It was,
it's one of those things where you're like, it's 3 a.m. and you're like, you know what? If I don't go to bed, I'm ruined for tomorrow. But you're like, I'm gonna watch 20 more minutes of this.
Yeah. It's like there's only 12 minutes left. I'm gonna finish it. How could I possibly turn that off? It was fascinating, right? That frame and all the people. I don't know. People don't change. So it's like, what was a quilting bee like in 1890? It was like that. It was literally like that. It was like that. It was just different clothes and like maybe it took longer for people to get there. Really, you know, because they had to do whatever. That was the way it was. It was just people hanging out. You know, it was not romantic. And there's all this romanticism that happens with quilts. And I've been reading about it lately in terms of like quilts in literature. There's all this like, you know, sentimentality and nostalgia and making it like, it was just like chicks and sometimes men. And they talked about it, hanging out, getting some stuff done, you know, coming through.
Know, I think that whole idea of the quilt frolic, you know, I've heard that written about.
Yeah.
And then other people are like, quilting bee? We never did nothing like that. And it's like, yeah, because you did this, what we just saw. That's not the quilting bee.
Right. They didn't even call it.
Probably like a small handful of people at some point did like some little party and let's quilt our quilt. And that just became the reality of what people think happened around quilts.
Exactly.
And by the way, Apple Shop is still a thing.
Is it really?
The filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Word Nerd put it in the chat, and yeah.
That's beautiful, SJ. I see you. That viewer. That one viewer. You're that one, aren't you? Oh, you're that one viewer. You been in the lurker lounge? You don't have to answer that, but I'm glad you're here. Thanks for chatting. Yeah, we just watched some really good stuff, and yeah, exactly. Like the quilting bee, like because like when I think about quilting bees in like the 19th century, you know, you see a few photographs. There's a few photographs of like women, rich white women, you know, sitting around a frame outside, you know, and it's great. That's amazing. Like that's culture too, and that's like important to the whole story. But I just have totally like internalized tonight on the show that quilting bees were like folks coming through all day. Coming by, paying a visit, visiting, you know, we're going to come by and visit. We're going to visit. And great.
Because those quilts were not like a hobby.
Right.
Those quilts had a purpose.
Correct.
Like they were for somebody's wedding gift, or they were for somebody, you know, whatever.
Yes. They were
so
stuff
like
that's so important.
I'm going to come help you put up some beans.
Yes.
Put up some tomatoes, and y'all are coming over next weekend to finish this dang quilt.
Yes, and that woman said it. We heard her say it, and that's so important about oral history and like these freaking videotapes. We don't have to trust the text. We don't have to speculate. And of course, oral histories have their troubles too. You know, people who take oral histories, sometimes they're interviewing people who've never given an interview before, and so they get nervous and they, you know, anyway, there's a whole like meta thing about oral history that I'm not qualified to talk about. My point is that woman said on the tape, she said, we didn't get together a lot outside of church. So a quilting was a reason to get together and to come together with your neighbors and stuff to do a thing. So that is, are you telling me that after church, the cultural, societal sort of glue for some communities, especially rural communities here we are in Appalachia. I mean, I don't know if it was West Virginia. I don't know. You can tell me. But that after church, getting a quilt done was a really good reason to hang out with people. That is huge. I mean, I make all these, you know, proclamations and all these lofty things I have to say about, you know, quilt making being really integral to the American story and just like culture in general in this country. Well, I'm not kidding. And I didn't say it, she did. I mean, after church, if getting together to make a quilt is like your major like reason to hang out with other people that you know and that you want to know, come on. You tell me quilts are like old-fashioned or not important or worth like cutting to ribbons just to make $1. Like, you know I don't talk about it. I haven't even brought that shit up in a long time. With videos like that, I'm just like, please. Couldn't be me. Okay, everybody. Oh, Lord. Listen, Myra, you gotta go. You gotta quilt. Oh, wait, no. You got to quilt with others this weekend at a retreat. It was fun. Okay, show and tell is about to start. Gotta mute the phone and go. And Scooters. Thanks, Quilt Nerd Show. Listen, y'all are the best. I know we went late tonight. Couldn't stop. Steph, it's later for you. It's an hour later for you. It's 10:42 for you. We gotta go. Thank you for saying all the things. It's September, everybody. Please subscribe to Quilt Nerd Show. I'm in year 2. It's being transparent, not just with my feelings, but with the need to support the show, because it's all that I do, and I need to be able to support my life doing it. So please subscribe. There's also a donate button. Steph might have mentioned it on the about page of on the channel. On the did you talk about the donate button? Hit that donate button, man. You know, kick
I didn't,
some...
but yeah, it's on the about page. When you're off air, it's on the about page. I think right now you could just scroll down and it's there.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, if you don't want to subscribe right now, if you can't, you know, if you're like, hey, I'm gonna give her $10 because I watch this show and I'm in the lurker lounge and I love it. I can't subscribe, but like, hey, here's some dough, because yeah, it really helps when you make content, and we do here. So thanks everybody. God, such a good time. You're the best. I will see you on Friday morning, because we have a show, Friday morning show, Quilt Nerd, every other week, this Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time. Oh my God. And a show Saturday night and a watch party Sunday. It's a crack up. Bye, everybody. You're the best. I love that so much. Bye.